videos are a few things that we shot over the last several months. Jerry and I sat down and talked about the steps together, and we both come from different backgrounds, Al-Anon and AA, and we both have different hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and we both have different takes on the 12 steps. But one of the things we want to do is bring hope to other families, that you can recover, you can get well, and that those little people who are affected by all that you do and say can get better too. And this is our mission, is to share with other people that we can do it, that the whole family can recover and the whole family can be well. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure and subscribe above.
Hi, welcome. You like our new camera angle? This is Jerry and Tanya Joya.
I think it's better like
Part of the Joyous family thing. Rocking the Joyous Family group. Talking about step 4. Oh, it's weird. It's backwards when I look at it like that.
I know, but it's not backwards for them, so that's good.
It reminds me, I got a tattoo and it said Tao, you know, T-A-O, and when I looked at it in the mirror, I thought he messed up because it said oat.
It's a true story. That's funny.
That's a true story.
So tell them what the 4th step is.
4th step is made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So, to me, the real key phrase there is of ourselves, because it's so easy to take everybody else's inventory. I guess we should start from scratch. So what's an inventory, right? Think about it with a business or with a ship, or maybe an inventory of our finances, and we kind of we put it all together. We lay it all out. We see what's on the table. It could be we got mice in the 3rd level of the aft port side of the boat, part of the inventory, so it's a liability. It could be we got 500 barrels of grain on the in a grain locker or in a root cellar or something. That could be an asset, but that's an inventory that you figure out everything you got. So, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Searching and fearless means we're going to try and dig in deep as we can into the crevices of our psyche, pulling out all that stuff we did. Like, let's say, I don't know, hypothetically, you were an older sister and you used to hold your younger sister down and spit in her mouth or something completely random like that, and you were really hung up about it. Well, you definitely want to dig that out and put it down in your 4th step. Let's say maybe you, gosh, I hate to say this because it's going to sound like I did this, but like, let's say it was an affair. You had an emotional or a physical affair with a member of the same or opposite sex while you were engaged in a relationship with somebody else. Definitely want to get that on your 4th step. Let's say it is, I'm generous to the point of self-destruction, or I'm giving to the point of where it harms myself or my family. That's probably a good thing to put on your inventory as well. And in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, where kind of these things, as best as I can tell from the history of this, were really formatted. I should really grab my book. Oh, you got it?
I got it. I'm ahead of you. Yay!
It really draws this out in chapter 4 of how it works. It really outlines what a 4th step should look like. Interestingly enough, when I did my, let me see if I can just find the exact language. I think I've got it right. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Bear with me. Oh, come on. When you're in a chair this tight.
We're snuggling, can you tell? And I'm sorry,
Oh, sweet.
Trying to post it out to a whole bunch of groups so that we can share with you our life experience. We love seeing y'all here. Thanks for being here. I'm not going to call out names because we're trying to keep it like you would a group, anonymous. Step 4 is one of, I can't say my favorites, but we're really getting into the meat of it.
Not very often do you hear people say that step 4 is their favorite.
But think about it. It is the freedom one. It is the one that really sets you free.
Well, 5 maybe, but that's getting ahead of ourselves. So, yep, I've got the language exactly right. So, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Traditionally, you would write this down, and the way the Big Book describes it is...
Tell them what the Big Book is first.
So, the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous is what the Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Wilson, Dr. Bob and Bill... Bill
Wilson.
Wilson.
Okay.
Anyway, my history is obviously not as good as I'd like it to be, but so here you go. Here's what it looks like in the Big Book. You get some columns there, 1, 2, and 3, and the first one is like I'm resentful toward.
Okay, I have it all.
Can you see it?
Well, here's this. Yeah, I got it.
Well, that's it. Okay.
But yeah, it's.
I mean, this is the first time that I see.
You haven't seen these?
No, I'm just saying. I mean, in the 12-step tradition.
We're gonna I'm gonna do a blog post on all this, or put it in the show notes underneath. But
the show notes page.
Huh?
Very professional. Show notes.
There are show notes. Yeah,
really?
I normally do show notes. Yeah.
I should read those.
Okay.
The second column would be the cause. So, like, let's do, for example, just totally hypothetical here. I'm resentful at my wife. And then the cause would be, let's say, now this never happens in our family, but double standards.
Well, you are just dragging it out tonight.
Well, it's completely,
the fourth step. Okay, so
don't pinch me.
The fourth step we're talking about, it really is probably the most important one, because without that, you can't be free. And what are the poor souls that are the ones who are unable to deal with their addictions? They're the ones who are unable to be honest with themselves. Yeah?
Yeah, and they're probably high right now.
Okay, go ahead with what you were saying. I've got one more
they
page.
They could just be restless, irritable, and discontent, I guess.
Yeah.
So in the traditional, in the AA book, it lays out 3 columns. And you would maybe take a legal tablet and draw 2 lines down it. So then you got 3 columns. And the first one, the header would be, I'm resentful at. The second column would be the cause. And then the third column would be, because it affects my ...
Right.
So let's go through it again. Completely hypothetical. I'm resentful at my wife.
Yeah. Some days.
The cause.
I didn't pick up the kids and you had to do it.
But that actually happened.
Yeah. That's okay.
All right. And then what does it affect? So the third column would be, it affects maybe my job status, my pride, possibly my pocketbook. Those are the biggies, and the other one is sex relations, whether that be actual, imagined, or potential. So the four ones we were talking about, that normally I don't know of any exceptions to those 4. Would be pride, pocketbook, work, which a lot of times can be pride and pocketbook, and then sex. So really, it's 3. I'm sure if you dug deep enough, you could find other things that it affects, but pride, money, and sex tends to be the ones that really get us aggravated. We could branch out into some real specifics, but they tend to fall into these categories. So the 4th step, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. It's where a lot of people get hung up. If you're done with your technical stuff, you can jump in at any time.
I think so, but they do get hung up on the technical stuff. There's 2 things that happen, and we were going to talk about procrastination and perfectionism. So on the last page of the thing that you printed out from your sponsor, one of the things that hangs people up is, well, if I can't get it all, I don't want to do it. So we haven't talked about this yet, but let's talk about the onion layers. When you hit an onion, it comes off in layers, and it just keeps coming off. So I think the key to doing this is just to have some time, sit down and do it like you would do a brainstorm. You don't think about it, you just put it out there and you brainstorm out what you think are the things that are causing you issues. And in CR, they break it down even further of moral inventory about fears, moral inventory about character defects, moral inventory about positive relationships, and moral inventory of guilt and shame. So you've got this perfectionism deal, or you have procrastination, which is, and I just heard this morning, thank you, Bill, it is just it is just on the payment plan. It is just excuses on a payment plan, and I just keep paying for them over and over again, and that really to me is ridiculous. So what the other thing that we often don't talk about in step 4, because by the time we've hit this point, we are often at this, we've been given the gift of desperation. So sometimes perfectionism and procrastination goes out the window because we want so much to be well. And again, this is Tanya and Jerry, and we're thejoyousfamily.com. We're sharing out of our own experience. So we are
He
not.
said step 4 is his favorite too.
I know, I told you. Other people have favorites like I do. But anyway, we're sharing out of our own.
You guys are going on my 4th step.
Oh,
This 4th step is my favorite thing.
So lots of people get in on their 4th step and they just want to put down all the wrongs they've done. And this is where the Al-Anon background comes in handy. This is a blueprint for progress. So we're showing you several different ways you can do your 4th step. And in a blueprint for progress, you have to write down both the goods and the bads. And if I can get there, I will get there. So this is not a simple thing. This is my first 4th step. This is a lot of information. You can read it if you want to. I don't have any problem with that.
Apparently everybody else can too.
Yeah, so there you go. So in the blueprint for progress, you put down both the goods and the bads of the scenario that happened. The goods and the bads of your maturity. The goods and the bads of love in your life. The goods and the bads of self-worth. The goods and the bads of responsibilities. Because really, all these things are neutral. We give them good and bad. So you kind of look at it as, what is it? How did it affect me? And how did I respond? So the issue that I see is, this is where people get stuck. That's why last week we talked about the 3-step walls. You get stuck in the first 3 steps. You're like, I am not going to do the work to do this. Well, you know what? You're not doing the work to get free. It is the step that begins the process of getting free. We'll talk about step 5 next week, which is when you share it with yourself, with someone else, and with God. And that's really as far as it has to go. So again, this is Tanya with Joyous Skincare, and we are Tanya with the Joyous Family. I have another channel, and they're looking at step 4. And the other thing that I thought is so interesting is, if I can find it, and okay, so you're looking at us and we are thumbing through papers because there are typically a lot of papers involved in this. The other thing that you cannot get away without is, you need one of these, a spiral notebook. I don't care how you do it. You can do it on your computer, but pen to paper is actually cathartic. There is something about putting it on the paper that releases it from you. And what a lot of people will do, they won't hang on to it. They'll burn it after they're done with it, because...
But wait. You may want to use it for your 5th step, so...
No. After you're done with your 5th step,
okay.
They may burn their 4th step. One, because it is something that really doesn't need to be seen by other people, because we haven't got to the 9th step, but there's a point where you don't want to hurt other people by coming out with all of the garbage that maybe some people don't know about, and that's okay.
I feel like we should just back up and kind of start over from the idea of... All right, so the first step we did... Came to believe that
power greater.
We were powerless over our addictive tendencies, and Oh my gosh.
Do we need to find it in the big book?
Admitted we were powerless over our addictive tendencies and compulsions, and that our lives had become unmanageable. So we had to admit we don't have this thing. If we could have fixed ourselves, we would have done it long ago. We're powerless. Number 2.
Tell your red wine story.
Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So came to believe that it was possible that we were sane again, but that we would need help. Number 3, made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God. So, all right, and if I can quote the original third step prayer, kind of the idea is, God, I give myself to you, the good and the bad, all of it, to do with my day as you would have it done. Tell me what to do, I'll do it, because if I have to make the decisions, I'll mess it up. So that's kind of, we came to the decision to the realization that we were going to yield ourselves, our decision-making abilities, or decision-making powers to something greater than ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean you'd be like, God, what sweater am I going to wear today? If you don't get an answer, you're not going to sit there without a shirt on forever. You're going to put a sweater on and go about your day. But as the decisions came, you turn them over to your higher power.
But the reason we did that, the reason each of us did that in our own separate reasoning was our lives had become so unmanageable. Our lives were so out of control. We couldn't function, and for me, I'm trying to control another person, and I'm getting angry at my young son because he looks just like my husband.
Oh, here he comes.
That I'm losing control in places that I don't want to lose control, where I want to be loving and nurturing and kind, and that's the mommy I wanted to be. And so when they laid that baby in my arms, I knew that I had to do something to get well, and yours came at a different point.
Anyway, so step 4.
Yes.
So I don't mean to sell that short. Because,
well, but that's important. Is we didn't come to step 4 because, oh yes, we want self-improvement. We came to step 4 because we were at desperate ends. Then you can come. So step 4 is something that the first time you work it took me 16 hours to work step 4. But the second time around, you're trying to keep shorter lists. You're probably doing a step 10 at the same time, which is keeping a daily inventory and keeping a short list and making immediate amends. So that's where people get in the procrastination part, is they're like, I'm 47 years old. I have to go back through 47 years of stuff to deal with it. It's not like that. You deal with what God puts on your heart at that time, and you let it rest.
But you try and get as much out of it as you can. And, and a lot of times you don't do this once, well, at least I don't do it once. The people I encourage through the steps is that this is a process. You're going to do it over and over. And, that God has started a work in us, but he's not finished with us until we're knocking on the pearly gates. And
I'm not knocking, I'm walking in.
Cool. See if St. Peter agrees with you.
I know. Jesus is going to meet me. We're going to have private time.
That's cool. So I got a lockpick set. We're going to get in there one way or another. But so my point is that is 2 things. Number 1, you dig as deep as you can, but it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. And number 2 is you don't have to be at the point of life and death scenarios to do this. This is about improving ourselves and becoming in a closer relationship with our Creator, more comfortable in our skins, and hopefully gain a level of serenity where kind of the difference between good and bad begins to fade away, and we just embrace things the way they are, as opposed to having to label it good and bad, right and wrong. It just is.
Taking life on life's terms and looking at it as we have choices. The problem is if you're carrying around, and I've seen this done, if you're carrying around this bag and then you've got a flight bag and then you've got a bag in front of you and then you've got a backpack on the back and you got a backpack on the front and you're carrying something on your head because you're carrying around all this resentment or frustration or problems or all those things that you don't know how to get free of, and it's only you and it's only God transforming you that can get you free, then everything's a problem. Everything's a crisis. You're going from a crisis, you're coming to a crisis, you're in a crisis. It's all a crisis.
So for example, like I had 3 mini donuts left before we started this podcast, and my wife took them from me. Now that could be a crisis because she's like, "No, we're going on right now," and I was right there at crisis mode, but I was able to work my program and kind of postpone gratification till later.
Which is not easy for him.
Which
Instant
this is
gratification
about
is a
over,
big
right?
deal.
We're about done with this one?
No, we've got a little bit more to do. Because we haven't really explained this for this.
But I got donuts.
I know you do. This step is hard to explain, but what I want to encourage people is there are methods that can work for you. There are different methods. Even Celebrate Recovery has a different method on how it does it. It does.
Oh.
So just the layout of how you do it. Because I went through the blueprint for progress and went, ugh, whatever. I know I have good qualities. I know I have bad qualities. It's when I hit the AA step that talked about, well, how does this affect me emotionally? How does this affect my job? How does this affect fears, resentments, sex life, selfishness, all those types of things? That's when it really came home on how to do that. And my sponsor had me fold it over so I could write down, I could say, well, I resent so-and-so for this. And I had 40 some odd pages to deal with in the first 4th step. You probably will not have that the next time around, but that is just kind of the house emptying, house cleaning. But I tell you what, I felt so much better, and I was able to manage my life so much more once I got through the 5th step part of it. So these are joint steps. They're like a married couple. You need to do one with the other. But the 4th step, you have to start.
Well, and I would encourage everybody, yes, they're joint steps, but nothing will get in the way, nothing got in the way of my 4th step more than focusing on, oh my gosh, you mean I'm going to have to tell somebody this? Which is the 5th step.
You're right.
So, what I was told is like, look, the 4th step is the 4th step. You just make the list. It's not about telling anybody. It's just about making
like 8 and 9.
the inventory. That's all you do.
Yeah.
And now, not to say that I was able to do that, but it did kind of help to be a mantra as I was doing this stuff of, no, I'm not actually telling anybody. I'm just writing a list. And yeah, so you just do the inventory. You isolate why, who you're resentful for or at. My first time 4th step, the majority of it was all me and the resent. I'm resentful at myself for, eating the 3rd donut, for example.
The 3rd donut. The 45th donut. But the reason why you do it, and this one, like I said, the CR one is broken down in this different sections. The reason why you do it is because you're so desperate for freedom. You are tired of living your life in bondage to these resentments, fears, to feeling powerless, to feeling like other people are taking over your life. And that, that's the joke between us is if he would just work his program, I would be well. Well, the biggest key for me 13 years ago was I could be happy, I could be well, even if he was still using and drinking or doing whatever, workaholism or whatever the other person is doing. Because my particular issue is if you're not doing what I need you to do, or if you're not playing along the way I need you to play along, I can't be happy. And that's ridiculous. So the 4th step frees you from those things, because the truth of it is there is no justified resentments. And getting through that is really hard. We live that on a daily basis of trying to work through that.
Yeah, sounds good stuff.
It is.
So about 10 minutes ago, I was like, we need to roll this back because I don't know that the 4th step process is covered maybe as well as it should. Do you have a 12 by 12?
I don't have a 12 by 12 on me. I can read you what it says out of the Blueprint for Progress, which is probably just like the 12 by 12.
But that's all Al-Anon hocus pocus.
It's the same thing as your stuff. It says the 4th step is an essential tool for personal growth. We can begin to grow with the courage to look at ourselves as we really are. Many of us have been so obsessed with the behavior of an alcoholic that we have little sense of self. So in my case, I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't making wise financial decisions. I was so caught up in what somebody else was doing that we may have lost sight of our personal goals, not fulfilled potential, and become too concerned with our attempts to change someone else. Often, our basic good qualities have been hidden by our fears and frustrations. And so, for the Al-Anon, it is for the person who is addicted to relationships and trying to control somebody else. You are the one that looks crazy. I'm sorry, but oftentimes the person who is addicted to substance or something else.
Can I suggest that you use I or me statements? As opposed to you or me.
He wants me to use I or me statements. I've seen y'all. You look crazy too. I looked crazy. If you saw us, I was the one who was acting out. I was the one who was screaming and yelling. I was the one who was acting out in public. Jerry was perfectly calm. He was all together. And so I decided I didn't want to be the crazy parent. I wanted to be able to love my children, to be whole with my children. Half a loaf is better than no loaf at all. And so that was the biggest issue for me.
Nut loaf.
Nut loaf was the truth. Nut loaf was absolutely the truth. And that I could not hold it together from minute to minute because I was so consumed by my disease.
So let me read out of the big book here because it gets a little more nuts and bolts, okay?
Not nut loaf.
A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock in trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsaleable goods. And it talks a little bit more about, the technical aspects of what an inventory is. Then it goes into what we're actually doing here in this spiritual program, which is we did exactly the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our made-up we searched out the flaws in our made-up we need light.
I know.
In our makeup, which caused our failure. Being convinced that self manifested in various ways, being convinced that self manifested in various ways was what had defeated us. We did,
We were self-sabotaging, which is a big thing in my life. Is I get in there, I get started on it, and then I self-talk myself out of it. Again, we're back to perfectionism or procrastination.
Man's number one enemy is himself, right?
Yes.
So, resentment is the number one offender. It destroys more addicts than anyone else, than anything else. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease, for we have been not only mentally and physically ill, we have been spiritually sick. When the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically, which is why you're exercising now.
No, I started CrossFit, and he's proud of me. So he keeps talking about it.
Which is a big deal for a power lifter to be proud of a CrossFitter.
I went there because they don't have nasty words in their music, and they don't. Yeah,
I listen to lectures when I work out.
Smelly gym. Yeah. But anyway, but we are on step 4. Step 4, which is a searching a fearless moral inventory, and like we said, and we've got some of this over on our resource page at thejoyousfamily.com. So be sure and go over there, thejoyousfamily.com. We also want to invite you anonymously to send us questions. And so we're kind of working on how to do that. But if you want to do it at Tanya at thejoyousfamily.com, we will keep your name out of it because that's part of the anonymous program. But that is something that we've stepped into. And once you begin to work these steps, then dreams come back into your life. You don't.
Oh, shall we read the promises?
Do you have the promises?
I do.
Okay, so the other reason you work these steps is for the promises, because there are specific promises that are returned to you, and you can dream again, you can think again, you can live your life again. Because for me, I was living somebody else's life, and Jerry was...
What? I don't know.
checked out of your life.
I don't remember much of it, so.
Jerry doesn't remember much of it.
I'm turning the light on.
And that was his. If you tip it up, it won't be so bad. Sorry about the light. That was his. Jerry loves babies, and the height of this was when his kiddos were babies. You missed some of that. That's good.
Okay. Well, now it's going to tip over. Stay.
Someday we will have the right camera lighting to do this.
Okay, so these are what's called the 9th step promises, and I think it's important to preface it with the idea that this is what, in theory, well, in practice for me, what begins to happen when we start our 9th step.
When you turn your will and your life over to God.
Which is 5 weeks away. We'll be talking about the 9th step.
9th step, 5 weeks.
But
stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Many meetings read these promises every meeting or close to there. I love it, especially when there's a newcomer in the room, because it really brings me back to the time where it was so desperate, and it really was about just tell me it's going to get better.
And as Jerry said, you don't, especially with Celebrate Recovery, you don't have to be desperate to do this. You can catch yourself before you get desperate, before you start into these behaviors. But oftentimes that's what brings us through the door.
That's actually a really good point, because one of the things that came up when I met with my sponsor last week was this idea that, you know, I think he was saying, we lose touch with the reality that when this all started, this whole 12-step craze started, it was for people who had already tried everything else, and it didn't work. They were too far down the scale. It wasn't working, and they needed something that went beyond logic and medicine, and they needed a spiritual remedy. So I think kind of it's unfair for, and I've seen this on both sides of the aisle, for people, this is not the only way to serenity. There are other avenues. This is one that works for us. This is one we have experience in, and this is one we feel obligated to continue the message. But there are people who literally, like Paul on the road to Damascus, just get struck down, and they're different. They're born again. And like it says in the 3rd step in the 12 by 12, for some of us, making a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God was not a choice. It was a process. And then others, it was like Paul. It was like wham. And then some of us are like Peter. We're like, I don't know him. I don't know him. I don't know that guy. And then, and then later he kind of lets us know that we're cool still.
But anyway, we're going to wind up the 4th step with the promises.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here. TheJoyousFamily.com has a lot more resources. We're hoping to get some of these posted. We're just kind of winging it at the moment, but we're excited that you're here. This is a great service piece for us, sharing our road. We would be happy to share more about our story. If you want to do it anonymously, we'd love to see it. And we love all your comments.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for the comments.
I know it's not anonymous, but, you know, we're figuring out how to make that work, and we love hearing from you. So any way you want to do that, we would love to hear from you. So promise.
Okay, cool. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past, nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises?
We think not.
They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
So it is a simple program, but hard to do. But I think in our economy, the fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. Those were the pieces that got me. And that's in what chapter? That's Into Action in the Alcoholics Anonymous book. You can get these books for free. Any AA group will give them away. These are things that you might want to take a look at. And then we also want to talk about that this is like the parable of the lost sheep. God is looking for you. There is no way you can be too far gone to be redeemed. And there is no opportunity that God will not take to redeem you and to share his love with you and to bring you back up. We have heard stories of people that you think would never make it out, and they did. We didn't think our marriage was going to make it out, and he saved us. So we would love to hear from you, either over on the website, here on the Facebook page. You can PM me, Tanya Joya. That's Gioia, like bingo. And
Not like bingo.
it is Gioia, Gioia. It's bingo. It's cool. It's a hard name, but easy to remember. So thank you so much for watching. This is a huge service piece for us. TheJoyousFamily.com, and it cut up. See my new prop. It cut that off. We also highly recommend that you get to a sponsor once you have done this. This is really important to have accountability partners and sponsors. We will talk about that next week. Next Monday, 7 p.m. And we're planning to encapsulate these in YouTube. So 7-minute YouTubes as well, which will be on the Joyous Family YouTube site. We have one of those too. All right.
Trust God, clean house, and tell the truth.
I love it. We should put that up. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.